when Warhammer 40k Darktide officially launched in November of 2022, over 100,000 people decided a dystopian future where humanity is at the brink of extinction, battling countless alien threats and heretical forces was worth the price tag of $40. 1 month later, over 1/4 of the players had already dropped the game, and another month after that, another 2/3 of them left. Finally, in February of 2023, just 3 months after Darktide came out, and only 4K of the 100 players remain. Only 4% of the game's peak player base on Steam decided to stick around. So, what happened? Why did Darktide fail when it showed such promise and interest before officially releasing? Well,
that's the first part done.
The story was, and currently is, still so pathetically absent that it's actually more accurate to say this game doesn't even have a story at all. Which is insane considering Darktide is based off of books. You know, those things that are literally just pages and pages of story? Yet in Darktide, there are no memorable characters, no interconnecting plot lines, no big bad villain, nothing. You are a prisoner who is told to go kill things because you are a prisoner. That's it.
You'll see.
Let the work begin.
Early in its life, Darktide would make announcements such as 13 missions across 5 zones, which translates to actually only having 5 maps in the game, with some quote-unquote missions being able to play the same maps again, but in reverse, with some boxes stacked up to cut off certain routes. Since most missions and maps would only require about 30 minutes to complete, and the game only containing about 5 maps in truth, this meant you could finish every map the game had to offer in as little as 2.5 to 3 hours. That is not enough content for a video game. When Left 4 Dead 1 released all the way back in 2008, it did so also with 4 to 5 campaigns, but the difference here being that these all included 5 fully fleshed out levels, an actual story featuring well-written characters, and even went on to release additional campaigns. Even Fat Shark themselves, the developers of Darktide, proved themselves capable of making a fully fleshed out campaign with memorable characters in their previous game, Vermintide 2. So, what the fuck?
How may I serve?
So if the game features no story at all and very, very limited maps to play, what is there to actually do? Well, to climb the difficulty ladder in Darktide, you'll need better weapons, higher random stat rolls on weapons with random perks and random blessings that all contribute to your ability to stay alive and keep enjoying the core gameplay loop. The problem is that it's all entirely random. It's worth noting that at some point, the developers came out and said they were inspired by Destiny and Destiny 2 and wanted to create their own versions of a game with a laughably bad story and endless potential to sell ugly looking skins. I mean, a dynamic live service-esque campaign that will continue each week as your group of 4 misfits explores the game world in a meta-narrative similar to how Destiny 2 is presented. You will embark on missions, but you will see them added and changed over time based on what's happening in the meta story. God, I hate Destiny. The result of Destiny and Destiny 2 becoming the millennial retirement home for gamers approaching 30 is other developers wanting to make less content for more money, because future content is always coming. More weapons, classes, maps, all of it is on the way, rather than just being fucking made in the game in the first place. But first, Darktide's developers have to go on vacation because they're all Swedish and apparently work like 2 weeks of the year. Yet despite all of it, despite the story never being written, maps lasting a couple hours at most, and the progression system containing 0 player choice or agency, the game's paid cosmetic store has been available and functioning since day 1. 0 technical issues, and continues to run perfectly no matter what time of year it is. This is what it means to be influenced by Destiny and modern day Bungie. It means less content up front and more money for the finished work you used to get later on. So, with all these egregious game breakers being in the game for months, why did 4,000 players stick around at all? And the answer to that is simply,
Oh, truly, this is the highlight of my day.
Rise up, Guardian, let them chase your family. By the Guardian for
the core gameplay loop of Darktide, much like its previous title Vermintide, is incredible, addicting, visceral, high-octane, adrenaline-pumping action. It's cleaving any of the individual limbs off of your enemies in the many different ways you can strike them. It's dodging and blocking at the last possible second, thanks to audio cues playing to the left or right of you, so you always have a chance to defend yourself. It's grand scale, epic finales where you hold off against wave after wave of specialists, elites, and bosses, alongside up to 3 of your best buds as teammates who are also fighting for their lives. When the game fully clicks for you and you enter a flow state of precise dodging, blocking, slaying, shooting, reviving, you might actually start to enjoy other games' combat a whole lot less. And all of that finally brings us to where we are today, October 2023, a full year after the game's official release. And what has changed? We got a couple more maps, not many more, but still more is better. Fat Shark still likes to pretend that running the same map in reverse counts as new content, but I'm not really so sure about that one. We got a big bridge level that either is at the start of the mission or end of the mission, because, backwards, and a really cool random door level where the way forward is through 3 halls of randomly opening doors that changes every time you play the map. It's probably my favorite part of any map, and I super wish Fat Shark sticks with this design choice for future levels. But really, it's the way you select maps that's vastly improved, as Fat Shark have honed the choosing process, resulting in easy maps being very easy for casual players, but also hard missions being next level hard for the masochists like me, who enjoy making the game as hard and challenging as it can possibly be. Crafting has been revamped in multiple ways, and while still not perfect, it is miles better than it used to be at launch. While there still is definitely some RNG involved in getting a weapon as close to the 380 stat limit as you can, now you can choose your perks and previously acquired blessings from a list when refining your weapons. With new weapons having been added, and probably more to come, this means progression is finally real. Playing on higher difficulties rewards you with materials you need to get stronger weapons to play on even higher difficulties, creating this feedback loop that everyone agrees probably should have been in the game before shipping. The story? Still nothing. Fat Shark have added extra cutscenes for each of the NPCs you can speak with at the hub world, but they don't really add any overall narrative at all. You still don't really know about the past, you have no future, you're just a prisoner forced to kill things. But now with a small tour around the place. Neato! The biggest and most recent patch for Darktide, as of writing this, is the class overhaul update that completely resets the way classes were built and really does change the way your characters contribute to the fight with your team. Instead of just one ability and one grenade variant being the highlight of each class, each of the 4 characters have 3 branching skill trees, all including 3 abilities, 3 grenade variants, and tons of different passives and keystones that actually change the gameplay up in fun and specific ways. No longer is the Zealot just the melee one who dies a lot because low HP equals damage. Now, the Zealot can be a hyper-mobile ninja capable of vanishing and backstabbing enemies with throwing knives. Or, the same character type can respec into a holy cleric, capable of buffing allies and repulsing enemies for a few crucial seconds while everyone gets back on their feet. The Ogren, which was previously little more than a non-interruptible healer who could tackle enemies and pick up its real carries, can now be a true powerhouse gunner with instant reloading and buffs to his firing speed on his signature massive weaponry. Psychers can forego their brain-bursting powers to drop bullet-blocking bubble shields that also regen ally shields while standing inside of them. Or toss homing magic missiles straight from Dungeons & Dragons to directly seek out the faces of foes. And the veteran characters went from being the designated shooter to an AoE reviving commander, or another invisible ninja. The long and short of it is, this latest patch, 1 full year after the game's official launch, feels like Darktide is finally out of early access and is now a more whole, complete game. I, like so many others, believe Darktide always had the lifeblood of an amazing 10 out of 10 game in the co-op horde genre, but it was clear to around 96,000 people that it just needed more time in development to reach that potential. Left 4 Dead 2 still has an average player base of 20 to 30,000 players with a peak player base of 78k just this month, proving that players are still hungry for co-op horde style games. But with recent titles like Redfall and Back 4 Blood being complete flops, Left 4 Dead 2 still has yet to be replaced. Right now, Darktide has spiked all the way back up to 25,000 players on Steam and likely thousands more on Xbox's Game Pass. And yes, crossplay is a thing now. As 2023 begins to wrap up its final quarter, Darktide is finally shaping up to be what we all knew it could be. New maps means more to see. New classes means more ways to enjoy them, and a new crafting system means more reason to do it all over again. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you want to see more. This has been Joystick Journal, and I'll see you next week with more gaming news.